I used to think there were lines my children would never cross. Words they might say in anger, sure. Doors they might slam. But not this. Never this. It happened on a Tuesday night, the kind of ordinary evening you never expect to remember for the rest of your life. The game was on mute, dishes drying in the rack, the house smelling faintly of coffee and fried chicken. I'd spent the afternoon fixing a loose step on the front porch, feeling every one of my 64 years in my knees. By 8:30, my grandson was in bed, and the adults were circling the real issue like vultures that pretended to be family. "Dad, we can't keep doing this," my son Jordan said, pacing the living room. His wife, Tasha, sat on the edge of the couch, one leg bouncing, phone in hand. I sat in my old recliner, the leather cracked along the arms, a mug of cold coffee resting on my knee. The TV cast a soft blue light over the room, but I wasn't watching. I was studying my son's face, the tightness in his jaw, the impatience in his eyes. They used to be soft eyes, curious eyes. A little boy's eyes looking up at his father, asking how the world worked. Now they were eyes that measured everything in dollars and square footage. "This house is too much for you," Jordan went on. "The taxes, the maintenance. You're not getting any younger, Pops. We're just trying to help." There it was again, that word. Help. Every time he said it, something inside me tightened. Because it wasn't help they wanted. It was the house. The two-story place on the corner lot in Savannah that his mother and I had spent 38 years paying off, patching up, and turning into a home. "I told you," I said quietly. "The mortgage is done. The roof's new. I'm doing just fine." Tasha snorted softly, not even bothering to look at me. "Doing just fine? You slipped on those steps last month. You almost broke your hip." "I bruised my backside," I corrected. "My hip is fine." She rolled her eyes and typed something on her phone. I could see the screen reflected in the window behind her real estate sites. Listings, numbers. Jordan stopped pacing and planted himself in front of my chair. "Look, we got approved for the loan," he said. "If you sign the deed over, we can refinance, pull some equity, and I move." "Where exactly?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just a second." But I caught it. "We found a really nice senior apartment complex over on—" "No." The word came out calm, but it felt like a door slamming shut inside my chest. Tasha finally looked up. "Earl, this is selfish," she said, voice sharp. "We have a child. Another baby on the way. We're cramped in that little rental while you're rattling around in this big old house with 3 empty bedrooms." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I did rattle around in here sometimes. I did talk to the walls more than to actual people. But this house was all I had left of Denise. Her paint colors on the walls, her handwriting on the recipe cards in the kitchen, her rose bushes out back. "You're not taking this house," I said. "I'm not signing anything." The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Jordan's nostrils flared. "Why do you always have to make everything so damn difficult?" he snapped. I opened my mouth to answer, but he was already leaning in, voice rising. "We're trying to build a future here. But you'd rather sit in this museum and wait to die than actually help your family." "My name is on that deed," I said, still calm. "Your mother and I." "Mom is gone," he shouted. The word hit me like a slap, but not the last slap of the night. Before I could stand, he grabbed the arm of the recliner and shook it. Hard. Coffee sloshed over my hand. "Get up," he barked. "Come look at the numbers. Maybe if you—" I pushed his hand away. Not hard, just enough to create space between us. Something ugly flashed across his face. "You don't push me," he said, low and dangerous in a way I'd never heard from my own child. "Jordan, that's your father," Tasha said, but there was no warmth in it, just the bored tone of someone narrating a show. "Then he should act like it," Jordan muttered. And then it happened. He stepped closer, knuckles white around his phone. I saw the moment he lost control, the way his shoulders tightened, the way his jaw clenched. His hand came down across my cheek, fast and hot. For a second, everything went white. The room tilted. My ears rang. My own son had just slapped me. The mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the hardwood. The sound snapped Tasha to her feet. "Jordan!" she gasped. My cheek burned, but the pain in my chest was worse. He froze, staring at his hand like it belonged to someone else. I forced myself to stand. My legs shook, but I kept my voice level. "Get out," I said. "Dad, I didn't mean—" I said, "Get out of my house." Tasha tugged at his arm. He cursed under his breath, grabbed his jacket, and stormed toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back, eyes bright with anger and something like fear. "You're going to regret this stubbornness," he spat. "Don't come begging us when you can't take care of yourself." The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. The house fell silent. I touched my cheek, feeling the heat of his palm still there, the echo of a line that could never be uncrossed. I didn't say another word that night. Not to the empty rooms, not to Denise's picture on the mantel. But while the clock ticked toward midnight and pain settled into something colder, a thought began to form. If my own son could raise his hand against me for this house, then I needed to make sure it never ended up in his. By the time the sun slipped over the horizon, I knew exactly what I would do. And the next morning, I served my son breakfast and began serving him justice. The house always settled at night, wood creaking, pipes humming, the porch boards exhaling after a long day of holding me up. But that night, it felt different. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow felt heavier, and every memory hurt. I stood in the bathroom under the yellow vanity light, staring at the bruise blooming across my cheekbone. It wasn't dramatic, just a darkening smear, the shape of something that should never have come from my own child's hand. I touched it, winced, then let my hand fall, not from pain, but from shame. "How did we get here, Denise?" I thought it, though I hadn't said her name out loud in years. Her picture sat on the dresser just outside the bathroom door, smiling like she always did, chin tilted up like she could see a future I couldn't. She always said Jordan had a good heart, and I always believed her. But even good hearts rot if you neglect them long enough, or if someone feeds them poison long enough. I wasn't blind. Tasha's words were sharper than her manicure. Her father had been a loan officer before he died, and she spoke the language of interest rates and equity like it was scripture. Jordan used to speak the language of baseball stats and barbecue sauce. Used to call me when he needed advice on fixing a sink or picking out a birthday gift. Then life got tight, bills piled up, and Tasha whispered in his ear about opportunities, about sacrifices for the family, about this house. I rinsed my face. Cold water didn't take the ache away, but it did something to my mind, brought me back into myself. Like snapping a frozen twig, I wasn't going to crumple. Not tonight. Not because of him. I walked to the living room, picking up the broken mug pieces one by one. My hands shook, but steady enough to keep me from cutting myself. That mug had been a Father's Day gift from Jordan when he was 8. He'd painted it himself, crooked letters, spelling Haitian DAD around a smudged baseball. The irony made my throat tighten. I swept the shards into a dustpan, but instead of throwing them away, I emptied them into a plastic bag and tied it shut. Evidence. The thought came out of nowhere, solid and cold. I wasn't thinking of revenge. Not yet. But self-preservation has a strange way of whispering to a man when the lights go out. I sank into my recliner, the leather warm from earlier. The room still smelled faintly of fried chicken, but beneath that something bitter fear, maybe. Or disappointment. Then I realized I hadn't locked the door. For the first time in my life, that bothered me. I walked over and slid the deadbolt with a quiet click that felt like sealing a vault. Jordan had never scared me before, but something in him tonight. That snap behind his eyes. That shadow that wasn't my boy. I couldn't ignore that. I sat at the dining table with Denise's old phone book and my reading glasses. My hands trembled again, not from age, but from everything that had just broken inside me. First number I dialed was the neighbor, Ruth. She had heard shouting last week during another argument. She'd asked if everything was okay. I'd lied. She picked up on the second ring. "Earl, that you?" "Yeah," I whispered. "Could use a favor." "Anything." "Do you remember hearing Jordan yelling last Thursday?" She hesitated, but only for a second. "I remember more than that. I heard something slam. I thought you were hurt." That sentence went into my mental folder labeled proof. I didn't tell her what happened tonight. Not yet. Just thanked her and hung up. Next. I took photos of my bruise in the hallway mirror. One with the lights on. One with the lights off. One with the flash. one without. I didn't know why I was documenting everything, only that something inside me, something primal and ancient, told me to. Then I opened my laptop, typed slowly. Domestic violence laws for seniors in Georgia. I read until my eyes burned. Laws. Protection orders. Recorded threats admissible in court. Property rights. Rights of elderly homeowners. For the first time since Jordan walked out, I exhaled. I wasn't powerless. The clock read 2:14 a.m. when I finally turned off the screen. The house was quiet again, but not the same quiet. This one had structure, direction, purpose. I stood, stretching my stiff back, and headed to the kitchen, pulled out eggs, flour, and Denise's old cast-iron skillet. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't even thinking about breakfast. I was thinking about ritual, about the calm before a storm, because I knew my son. He'd be back in the morning, not to apologize, but to reclaim control. And when he did, I'd be ready in a way he'd never expect. For now, all I had to do was wait for sunrise and pretend I was just making breakfast. The sun wasn't even up when I stepped into the kitchen. The air felt heavy, as if the house itself knew what was coming. I moved slowly, my ribs sore, my cheek throbbing, but every motion had intention, quiet and deliberate, like a man setting a table for Judgment Day. I pulled out Denise's old cast-iron skillet. It weighed more than any pan ought to, solid enough to anchor a boat. She always said cast iron makes food taste like memory. Maybe that's why I chose it. Maybe I needed something of hers in the room with me this morning. The bruise on my cheek had deepened overnight, turning from plum to ash blue. I didn't bother hiding it. Let him see what he'd done. Let it hang in the air like a sermon. I cracked eggs, whisked them the way Denise used to. 3 taps on the bowl, tilt your wrist, fold the motion instead of beating it. My hands shook a little, but not from fear. From resolve. The house smelled warm and familiar by the time the sky turned pale gold over the neighborhood rooftops. Bacon sizzled, biscuits browned in the oven. Coffee percolated, strong enough to rattle a man awake. It looked like any other morning, but nothing about it felt like one. At 7:12, I heard tires crunch on the gravel. Right on time. Jordan never missed breakfast if he thought there was something to gain afterward. The front door opened without a knock, something he'd done since he was a teenager, something I'd never corrected. This morning, the sound made my stomach tighten. "Dad?" he called, tentative. Not angry, not yet, just unsure. I didn't answer. I plated the eggs instead. He stepped into the kitchen, and the first thing his eyes landed on wasn't the food. It was my face. His breath caught. "Jesus, Dad, your cheek." He moved closer, hand half raised, like he meant to touch it. I stepped back. Just an inch, but it was enough. That inch told him everything. He swallowed hard, guilt flickering through him before pride smothered it. "Look, about last night, we both got heated." "We?" I said quietly, sliding the plate across the table. He exhaled sharply. Not an apology, just frustration that I wasn't letting him spin the story. Tasha came in behind him, hair pulled back, perfume sharp and citrusy. She glanced at my bruise, blinked, and said in a tone as flat as a kitchen tile, "Accidents happen. Accident." Somehow that word stung more than the slap. She sat down without asking and poured herself coffee. Jordan followed. Just like any other morning, they acted as though nothing had happened. I served them breakfast anyway, silently, carefully, 1 plate for each. Jordan cleared his throat. "So, about the house." "Eat," I said. He blinked at the command, like he wasn't sure he'd heard right. "Dad, we need to settle the paperwork," the loan officer said. I said, "Eat." The quiet in my voice cut deeper than shouting ever could. He obeyed, picking up his fork. Tasha took 1 bite of biscuit, paused, and narrowed her eyes. "This tastes different. New recipe?" "No," I said. "Old one." She shrugged and went back to eating. Jordan ate slower. He kept glancing at me, trying to read my face, looking for anger, weakness, surrender. But I gave him nothing. Halfway through his eggs, my son finally broke. "Dad, you can't just freeze us out. We're trying to build a life. You have extra space, we don't. It's logical." "Logical," I repeated. I poured myself coffee. "Would it be logical to hit your father again if he doesn't agree?" He froze, fork in midair. Tasha looked at him sharply. Jordan, what's he talking about? He shot her a glare, one of those silent warnings couples use when there's truth they don't want aired. I let the moment sit, let it thicken, let it infect the room. Dad, he hissed, don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything, I replied, but I will protect what's mine. He shoved his chair back. Protect? From your own family? I reached into the drawer beside me, took out the small voice recorder, the one I'd bought months ago for the church choir meetings. I pressed play. Jordan's voice filled the kitchen. We're trying to build a future here. You'd rather wait to die than help your family. Then the sound of the slap, sharp, undeniable. Tasha's face drained of color. Jordan's fork clattered to the table. You recorded me? He whispered. No, I said. I recorded the truth. My hand didn't shake this time. Not when I turned off the recorder. Not when I poured more coffee. And not when I said, you wanted breakfast. Now you're going to finish it while I decide what happens next. Jordan opened his mouth to speak. But for the first time since he was a child, he had no words. And the morning light, soft and warm through the window, felt like something else entirely. A beginning. I didn't expect the kitchen to hold that much silence. It pressed against my ribs like a second heartbeat, steady and merciless. Jordan sat rigid in his chair, eyes darting between me and the voice recorder like it was a loaded weapon. Tasha looked even worse, her lipstick suddenly too bright, her confidence peeling at the edges. I let them sit in it, let them feel the weight of last night echo through the morning. You blindsided me, Jordan finally muttered, running a hand through his hair. Recording me without telling me? That's not right. I leaned against the counter. My cheek throbbed, but the pain helped keep my voice steady. You hit me, I said simply. And that wasn't right either. His mouth opened, closed. He looked like a man drowning in excuses, but unable to grab hold of a single one. Tasha crossed her arms, chin lifting with that familiar blend of entitlement and false concern. So what's your plan, Earl? She asked, voice cool. Hold this over us? Blackmail your own son? For what, keeping a roof over your grandchild's head? My roof is already over his head, I replied. And I'm the one who built it. That shut her up. Jordan stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen like a storm trapped in too small a room. Dad, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. I'm working double shifts, bills piling up, rent going up again. And how does slapping your father fix any of that? I asked. He flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen, he snapped. You got me so worked up, and you... I what? I asked. Made you angry enough to strike me? To take the house? To push me out of my own life so you could make room in yours? He turned away. His shoulders looked smaller suddenly, like someone had deflated the arrogance he wore like armor. The kettle whistled softly behind me. I turned it off, poured myself tea, and let the warmth settle in my chest. Dad, can't we just move past this? He said, voice tight. You're blowing this up into something huge. That's because it is huge, I said. A son raising his hand to his father isn't something you sleep off. Tasha leaned forward, irritation seeping through every word. Look, Earl, maybe everybody made mistakes yesterday, but we can work this out without dragging outside parties into it. Ah, there it was. The fear. I set my tea down. Outside parties? I repeated softly. You mean law enforcement? Jordan stiffened. Tasha's jaw tensed. Dad, Jordan said, his voice dropping an octave. Don't do this. I walked to the hallway drawer, opened it, and pulled out the second piece of evidence. The medical discharge papers from when I fell on the porch steps 3 weeks earlier. I laid them on the table next to the recorder. You know, I said, the doctor told me that fall looked like I'd been shoved. I told him no. I protected you. Jordan's breath hitched. Tasha blinked rapidly. I didn't shove you, he said, panicked. No, I said. You just grabbed my arm and yanked me so hard I lost my balance. Not the same thing. Legally. He stared at me like the room was tilting. Dad, come on. I sat across from him, hands folded. You said something last night, I reminded him. You said I'd regret not handing over this house. He swallowed. That wasn't a threat. It sounded like one. He reached for my arm instinct. Desperation. Something, but I pulled back before he touched me. The flinch wasn't dramatic. Just a small, instinctive recoil, but it sucked the air out of the room. Jordan stared at my hand, then at my face. He looked like a boy again, terrified of a truth too big to outrun. "Dad," he whispered, voice cracking, "you're afraid of me." I didn't answer. Sometimes silence tells the truth better than words. Tasha rose to her feet, smoothing her shirt as if preparing for battle. "Okay," she said sharply. "If you're going to weaponize this, then we'll get our own lawyer. We'll fight for what's fair." Fair. That word curdled in the air. I stood slowly. "Then you should prepare yourselves," I said quietly, "because if lawyers are coming into this house..." I let the pause stretch, just enough to make their hearts skip. I won't be the one who walks away scared. Jordan sat heavily, running both hands over his face. "Dad, please, just tell us what you want." What I wanted? Peace. Respect. My son back. But instead, I said the truth. "I want boundaries. And consequences." Tasha scoffed. Jordan looked lost. I picked up the recorder. The little red light blinked faintly. "I have enough evidence," I said, "to file a report." Jordan's head snapped up. "Dad, but I haven't yet." The room froze. I wasn't threatening them. I was giving them one last line they could choose not to cross. Jordan's voice cracked. "What do you want me to do?" I looked at him, really looked, and said the hardest sentence of my life. "First, you're going to leave this house. For now." His face collapsed. Tasha stiffened in outrage. But neither of them said no. Because finally, they understood this wasn't just breakfast. This was war. Jordan didn't argue. That alone told me how far we'd fallen. My son, who once fought me over bedtime, over curfews, over chores, now stood frozen, staring at the door like stepping through it might erase every mistake he'd made. "It's just for a few days," I said quietly. "A mercy sentence. A temporary exile." But his shoulders still sagged under the weight of it. Tasha clicked her tongue, grabbed her purse, and muttered, "This is ridiculous." But she still moved toward the door, not because she respected me, but because she understood leverage when she saw it. Jordan lingered. "Dad, I don't want it to be like this." "Neither do I said. And that was the truest thing I'd said all morning. "But I need space. And you need a reminder of where the line is." He didn't reply. Instead, he looked at the bruise on my cheek, the recorder still on the table, the medical papers lying beside it like accusations with signatures. Then he whispered, almost too soft to hear, "I never thought I'd scare you." His voice cracked on the last word. I didn't tell him I forgave him. I didn't tell him I didn't. I simply opened the door. He stepped out. Tasha followed with one last glare. And when the door shut, the house exhaled. Almost immediately, the silence changed shape. No longer heavy, no longer suffocating. This silence was cleaner, sharper, purposeful. I leaned against the door, breath steadying in my chest. The kitchen still smelled like breakfast, but now it carried an undercurrent of gunpowder. The scent of a battle paused, not finished. I moved back to the table and sat down, letting my fingers trace the grain of the wood. It felt different this morning, rougher, older, like the house itself had aged a year overnight. But now came the part I dreaded, sorting through everything I had gathered. I brought the laptop back out, opened a folder, created subfolders, photos, recorded audio, medical papers, witness statements. The organization felt clinical, surgical even, like I wasn't building a case against my own son, but against some stranger who happened to share his face. I uploaded the pictures of my cheek, the ones taken last night, the ones taken at dawn, under kitchen light, under hallway shadows. Every angle, every bruise, frozen in pixels. Then I replayed the recording, the shouting, the slap, the shock in my own breath afterward. Hearing it from outside myself made my stomach twist. The sound of him hitting me. That would stay in my bones for years. I wrote a timeline. Precise. Objective. No drama, just truth. 8:37 p.m. Verbal argument escalates. 8:44 p.m. Physical contact initiated by Jordan. 8:45 p.m. Mug breaks. 8:52 p.m. Jordan and Tasha leave. I typed steadily, hands calm now that they had purpose. Every word felt like a brick laid in a wall I wished I didn't need. By 11 a.m., my eyes were burning, but the work was done. A soft knock shattered the quiet. Not the sharp rap of anger, not the pounding of panic. A gentle knock, hesitant. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure. Ruth from next door, holding a foil-covered plate. I let her in. She took one look at my face and gasped. "Oh, Earl." I knew something was wrong. Her voice was thick, with the kind of sympathy that makes a man feel both comforted and exposed. "You want to tell me what happened?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her eyes followed the bruise. The recorder, the paperwork, spread across the table. She put a hand on her chest. Lord have mercy. He really did this. I swallowed. Shame pricked at my throat, but I nodded. Ruth sat down across from me and opened her purse. She pulled out a small notebook. "I wrote down what I heard last night," she said. "And the last 2 times they yelled at you. Just in case." She slid the notebook toward me like a gift. It was more than a gift. It was a shield. "Earl," she said quietly, "whatever you choose, you don't have to go through it alone." For the first time since last night, my voice wavered. "Thank you." She squeezed my hand. "You're a good man. And good men shouldn't bleed for other people's greed." When she left, the house felt different again. Not empty, but fortified. I sat down, breathed deep, and stared at the small mountain of evidence. A father shouldn't need proof against his son. But sometimes life doesn't give you clean lines, just blurry ones that harden only after you've been hurt. I closed the notebook, closed my laptop, closed my eyes. Now I had everything I needed. The next step wasn't clear yet, but it was coming. Because a line had been crossed. And some lines broke things forever. The next morning arrived with a strange kind of brightness. The kind that made the house feel too honest, too revealing. Like sunlight was a spotlight aimed at every crack in my life. I woke earlier than usual, though sleep hadn't done much for me. My cheek throbbed, the bruise settling into a deep purple that pulsed with every heartbeat. I washed up, made a simple breakfast, and tried to move through my routine like a man whose life hadn't tilted off its axis. But by 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. I froze. Jordan never rang. Tasha never rang. That meant this wasn't them. When I opened the door, a tall woman in a navy blazer stood on the porch, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Earl Sanders?" she asked. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind professionals use when they've seen more than they should. "Yes," I said cautiously. She offered a small smile. "I'm Officer Lisa Donnelly, Savannah PD. May I come in?" A ripple went through my chest, fear, then relief, then something hollow. "Yes," I said, stepping aside. She entered slowly, her gaze drifting to the bruise on my face before she politely forced her eyes away. Professionals do that. They pretend not to see what they're actually here for. "Mr. Sanders," she began, settling into a chair at the dining table. "I received a call last night." My heartbeat stumbled. "From who?" I asked. She folded her hands. It was anonymous. But the caller said they heard shouting, and what sounded like someone being struck. My breath caught. Ruth. It had to be. I sat across from the officer, palms flat on the table. She waited like someone who knew that truth had to be coaxed out gently, not dragged. "Mr. Sanders," she said softly, "are you safe in your home?" A simple question, a dangerous one, because once you answer honestly, there's no going back. I looked at the kitchen doorway, at the chair where Jordan had sat yesterday, at the exact spot where my son's hand had collided with my cheek. "No," I said quietly. "Not last night." She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just nodded slow, knowing. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I hesitated. There was something humiliating about saying it out loud, as if giving it voice made it more real, more permanent. But I forced the words out. "My son hit me," I said. "He tried to pressure me into giving him the house. Things got heated. He slapped me." The officer took notes, her expression unreadable but deeply human. "Has this ever happened before?" she asked. "No," I said automatically, then stopped. The fall on the porch, the bruised arm from when he grabbed me too hard, the shouting, the threats masked as concern. "Maybe," I whispered. "Not like this, but maybe." Officer Donnelly waited again, letting the truth unfold at its own pace. Do you have any injuries besides the bruise? She asked. No, just this. Any witnesses? I hesitated. Then I reached for the notebook Ruth gave me. I placed it on the table. She opened it, scanned a few lines, and nodded thoughtfully. Do you have any recordings? She asked next. I handed her the voice recorder. She listened. All of it. The yelling, the slap, the silence afterward, my silence. When it ended, she set it down gently. Mr. Sanders, she said slowly, this is serious. I swallowed. I know. You have grounds to file a domestic violence report, and a protective order if you want one. My chest tightened. A protective order against my only son. That's heavy, I said, voice thin. It is, she replied. But so is what happened to you. She leaned forward, voice softening. You're not betraying him by protecting yourself. You're acknowledging reality. I stared at the table. My reflection wavered in the polished wood. A distorted version of myself, a father, bruised, shaken, torn between love and survival. What happens if I file? I asked. She didn't sugarcoat it. He could be arrested. My stomach twisted. I pressed my fingers against the bruise, grounding myself. And if I don't? Her voice lowered. Then next time could be worse. A cold truth. A brutal truth. But a needed one. I looked up. Can I think about it? Of course, she said gently, standing. But don't take too long. And if he comes back angry, call us immediately. She handed me her card. My direct number, she said. Use it. I walked her to the door. She paused, looked at me with eyes that had seen too much of this world. You're not alone in this, Mr. Sanders. Then she left. The house fell quiet again. But this silence wasn't peaceful. It felt like a countdown, a warning, a hinge in the story turning. I stood in the doorway long after she drove away, a single question echoing in my head. Was I ready to turn my son into a criminal? Or was he the one who'd already turned himself into one? Either way, I knew this much. By the end of the day, I'd have to choose. I didn't make a decision right away. Men like me, we don't rush into big things. We sit, we breathe, we think. We weigh the guilt against the danger, the love against the bruises. But that afternoon, the truth stopped whispering and started baring its teeth. It began quietly. I was sitting on the porch, rocking slowly in the chair Denise bought me the year Jordan graduated high school. The autumn air had a crispness to it, a kind of honesty that didn't let you hide behind old memories. I kept replaying Officer Donnelly's words. You're not betraying him by protecting yourself. You're acknowledging reality. Reality, that tricky, unwelcome guest that knocks only when you're not ready. I sipped my coffee, eyes drifting toward the street, and then I saw them. Jordan's car pulled up, too fast. Tires grinding against the gravel. He slammed the door so hard the entire frame of the car shuddered. He didn't come alone. Tasha stepped out first, sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky, lips pressed tight like she was chewing on a lemon. Behind her was a woman I didn't recognize, a short-haired brunette in a blazer, holding a purse and a stack of papers. A lawyer. My stomach knotted. Jordan marched toward me with that look. The look of a man determined to rewrite history before it had time to settle. Dad, he said sharply. Inside. We need to talk. No, I replied calmly, not rising from my chair. If you've come to talk, you can do it right here. He blinked, thrown off by my refusal. He wasn't used to me drawing lines. He was used to me softening them. Tasha's lawyer stepped forward. Extending a hand like this was a polite Sunday visit. Mr. Sanders, my name is Rachel Kent. I know exactly who you represent, I said, not taking her hand. Tasha scoffed. So we're doing this dramatic? You're the one who brought a lawyer to my porch, I said. Seems dramatic already. Jordan's jaw clenched, and he took a step closer. Dad, listen, this doesn't have to get messy. A sound escaped me, half laugh, half disbelief. Son, I said slowly, it's already messy. The lawyer straightened her papers. Mr. Sanders, she began in that polished tone. We're here because Jordan and Tasha would like to propose a mutually beneficial agreement regarding the property. My forehead creased. Agreement? She smiled, the kind of smile designed to manipulate old men and slow thinkers. Yes, they're prepared to handle the property taxes, maintenance fees, and insurance in exchange for co-ownership of the house. Co-ownership. There it was. The new play. Softer than stealing, slicker than demanding, but just as poisonous. I didn't respond. I let silence settle again, the kind that makes lawyers sweat. Rachel continued, "It's a generous offer, Mr. Sanders, especially given your age," and she glanced at my bruise. My hand curled around the arm of the rocking chair. "Finish that sentence," I said quietly. Her mouth snapped shut. Jordan stepped in. "Dad, we're trying to help you. You can't keep living alone. It's not safe. And with what happened? What happened?" I cut in. He swallowed. His eyes darted to Tasha. He wanted to deny it, twist it, erase it. But the bruise on my cheek didn't lie. "What happened was an accident," Tasha said coldly. "And if you try to turn it into something else, we'll have to protect ourselves legally." "Legally," I repeated. The word felt like ash in my mouth. Jordan knelt beside my chair. A gesture that might have once been tender, but now felt strategic, desperate. "Dad," he whispered, "please, don't involve the cops. Don't ruin my life over one mistake." My chest tightened. He was using that voice. The voice he used at 5 years old when he broke a window playing baseball. The voice he used at 16 when he crashed my truck into a ditch. But this time wasn't a broken vase, wasn't a dented bumper. This bruise was mine. I stood slowly, and the three of them stepped back without meaning to. "Son," I said softly, "I will always love you. But love without respect is just a leash." He stared at me, stunned. I continued, "You raised your hand to me. You scared me. And now you're here with a lawyer asking for the house you tried to take by force. That's not fair," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, Jordan. What's not fair is what you did. What's not fair is pretending it didn't happen." Tasha crossed her arms. "So what then, Earl? You want to drag your only son into court?" I turned toward her. "If that's where he drags himself," I said, "I won't stand in the way." Rachel, the lawyer, stiffened. "Mr. Sanders, we can resolve this peacefully, if—" "No," I said. "Not like this." I walked to the front door. "Leave," I said. "Come back when you're ready to talk, without threats, without lawyers." Jordan's voice cracked. "Dad." I stepped inside and closed the door. The click of the lock echoed through the house, a small, final sound that felt like a chapter folding shut. For a moment, I stood in the quiet, gripping the doorknob, breathing through the ache in my chest. Then a new thought hit me, heavy and cold. If they were willing to bring a lawyer to my porch, what would they do next? That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just a family conflict anymore. It was a battle for my home, and I wasn't going to lose it. I didn't sleep that night, not because of fear this time, but because clarity kept me awake. There comes a moment in every fight where the fog lifts, and you finally see what the other side is willing to do. My moment came when Jordan showed up with a lawyer on my porch. That wasn't a conversation. That was a warning. And warnings don't come from children who still love you the right way. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I locked every window, checked every door, closed the blinds. Not because I thought Jordan would break in, but because people who use lawyers as weapons rarely fight alone. I made myself coffee and sat at the dining table, the same place where he'd eaten breakfast 2 days earlier, pretending everything was fine while planning to corner me. The bruise on my cheek had deepened to a reddish-black stain. Ugly, unavoidable. I traced its shape in the reflection of my mug, a mark left by someone who should have protected me in my old age. Around noon, my phone buzzed. "Tasha." I let it ring. I didn't owe her my voice. Then Jordan called. I let that one ring too, but it hurt. Not physically. Somewhere deeper. Finally, a voicemail came through. His voice wobbled between guilt and anger. "Dad, please pick up. We just want to talk. Tasha's worried you might do something stupid. Call me back." Stupid? Protecting myself was stupid now? I didn't respond. Instead, I powered off the phone. If they wanted to reach me, they could knock like humans. Around 1 p.m., someone did. But it wasn't them. It was a man in a gray suit with a briefcase, a different lawyer. This one older, softer-eyed, Someone who looked like he spent more time writing wills than intimidating old men. "Mr. Sanders?" he asked. "My name is Harold Whitmore. I received a call from a Mrs. Ruth Halpern." Ruth. That woman had inserted herself into my life more in 2 days than Jordan had in 2 years. "Come in," I said. He followed me to the dining table, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a stack of papers neatly clipped together. "I've been briefed on your situation," he said. "Ruth thought you could benefit from some legal guidance." I huffed. "I didn't ask for a lawyer." "No," he said gently, "but you need one." He slid the packet toward me. "Do you know who currently appears on the deed to your home?" "Me," I said. "And my late wife, Denise." He nodded. "Correct. But did you know your son attempted to file for a co-ownership inquiry last month?" My blood turned cold. "What?" Harold turned the page, revealing a copy of a courthouse inquiry form with Jordan's signature. "An inquiry isn't binding," Harold said, "but it tells us intent. Usually people only file these before elderly guardianship petitions or property disputes." My heart thudded in my ears. Elderly guardianship. That phrase tasted like rust. "You're saying my son tried to declare me incompetent?" "Not yet," Harold said, "but it's the direction these filings usually go." I felt the room tilt. Jordan wasn't just angry. He wasn't just struggling. He was planning a complete takeover. Legal, permanent, suffocating. All while smiling across the breakfast table. Harold continued gently. "This is common when adult children see an asset they want. They push for joint ownership, then petition for mental evaluation, then assume control of the property." I stared at the bruise in the window reflection again. It suddenly felt like a signature. The first attempt to weaken me physically, followed by Tasha's attempt to weaken me legally. Harold folded his hands. "You have 3 options, Mr. Sanders. 1. Transfer the house into a living trust with you as the primary beneficiary, untouchable by your son. 2. File a restraining order and police report immediately. 3. Do nothing and risk everything." Silence settled over the room like dust. I looked at the walls of this house. The chipped paint Denise insisted we leave untouched. The family photos. The grooves in the floor where Jordan had dragged his toy fire trucks as a child. This wasn't a house. This was my entire life carved into wood and drywall. And they wanted to take it? Harold cleared his throat softly. "I know this is difficult, but you need to decide soon. If Jordan files anything else at the courthouse, your options narrow." I wasn't numb anymore. I was angry, cold, steady, righteous. I reached for the pen beside the papers and said the words I never imagined I'd say about my own son. "Tell me what I need to sign to protect my home." Harold nodded, sliding the trust documents forward. "Then let's begin." As I signed page after page, a strange calm washed over me. Not peace, not relief, just clarity. My son had chosen a battlefield, but he didn't expect me to fight back. When Harold left, I sat alone in my quiet house, now legally fortified against the very people who wanted to take it. Jordan still didn't know yet, but he would. Because protecting a house is one thing. Protecting yourself from the people you love, that's a different kind of war. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. By the time Harold's car disappeared down the street, my house felt heavier. Not with fear, but with something colder, sharper, certainty. The living trust had been signed, filed, protected. My home, every brick, nail, and memory, no longer had Jordan's name anywhere near it. Not legally. Not in the future. Not ever. And yet a hollow ache settled beneath my ribs. A father isn't built for this kind of war. Our hands were meant for guiding, not defending. Still, some battles choose you. I spent the afternoon fixing things around the house I didn't even realize were broken. A loose cabinet hinge, a squeaky door frame, a flickering porch light. Every small repair felt like claiming a piece of myself back. But around 5 p.m., a different kind of sound interrupted the quiet. The crunch of tires on gravel again. Jordan's car. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. This time, they didn't bother knocking. They marched straight to the porch. Jordan, in a wrinkled t-shirt. Tasha, in workout gear like she'd come straight from the gym, and their lawyer trailing behind with an expression that said she already regretted being here. Jordan didn't wait for me to open the door. He pounded on it, loud enough to shake the frame. "Dad! Open up! We need to talk." I opened the door only halfway. A line. A boundary he hadn't respected in years. "What do you want, Jordan?" His eyes were red either from frustration or tears he didn't want to admit to. "You filed something," he said. "Didn't you?" Tasha crossed her arms. "Don't play dumb, Earl. We were at the courthouse. They couldn't tell us details, but they said someone filed a property restriction and trust transition." A slow breath left my mouth. They were quicker than I expected. Jordan ran a trembling hand through his hair. "Dad, why would you do that?" His voice cracked. "You think I'm your enemy?" I looked him straight in the eye. "You brought a lawyer to my house before you brought me an apology." He flinched. "That's not fair." And trying to co-own my house behind my back was fair? He froze. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No excuses left. No angles left to play. "I was trying to secure our future," he shouted. "I'm drowning, Dad. Rent's killing us. Bills are killing us. You have this big house, and I earned it." I cut in. "With 38 years of sweat and a wife who stood by me while we built a life? Not for you to inherit early. Not for you to corner me into. Not for you to take." He stared at me like he didn't recognize the man standing in front of him. Maybe he didn't. Tasha stepped forward, her heels scraping sharply. "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "You're overreacting to one little slap." A tremor went through me, not from fear, but from the sharp realization. She didn't just excuse what Jordan did. She belittled it, and Jordan let her. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so my house wouldn't absorb their poison. The porch boards creaked beneath my weight like an old friend shifting closer. "One little slap?" I repeated softly. My voice didn't rise. The calmness made Tasha take an involuntary step back. "You think the bruise on my face is the only thing broken? You think age makes a man blind to schemes? You think a father can't tell when his own child is being pulled like a puppet by greed?" Jordan tensed. "Tasha's not—" "She is," I said. "But she's not the only one." His face fell. I continued. "And you're so desperate to prove you're a provider that you're willing to destroy the one relationship that should outlast every storm." That landed, right in the center of his chest. Jordan's voice came out small, cracked. "Dad, I didn't mean to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I asked. The question was a blade, silent, sharp, and unyielding. He looked down at his feet. Tasha rolled her eyes. "This is going nowhere," she muttered. "Let's go, Jordan. We'll handle this legally." But Jordan didn't move. He looked at me, really looked. And for a moment, I saw my boy again. The one who used to draw chalk rockets on the driveway. The one who cried when his goldfish died. The one who asked me every night if monsters were real. And now here he stood, realizing he had become the monster he once feared. "Dad," he whispered, "you think I'm capable of all this?" "I didn't," I said. "Not until you showed me." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Of regret. Of shock. Of a truth we both wanted to unhear. Finally, Jordan stepped back. Not in anger. In defeat. Tasha grabbed his arm, whispering sharply, "Come on, we're leaving." But Jordan didn't budge. He looked at me one last time. "We'll talk later," he said softly. "When she's not here." That sentence, that small defiance, cut deeper into Tasha than into me. She yanked him toward the driveway. "Don't start that again, Jordan." But he didn't respond. I watched them drive away, the gravel dust rising behind their car like a curtain closing on a bitter act. The house was quiet again when I stepped inside. But this time, it wasn't the quiet of fear. It was the quiet before a truth reveals itself fully. Because for the first time, Jordan saw the line he'd crossed, and realized there might not be a way back. I didn't hear from Jordan for 2 days. Not a call, not a text, not the sound of his car rolling up the driveway the way it always did when he wanted something. The silence felt strange. Not peaceful, not threatening, just suspended, as if the world were holding its breath, waiting to see which one of us would break first. But I didn't break. I kept myself busy repainting the porch railing, organizing Denise's old recipe cards, trimming the roses she planted 25 years ago. With every small task, I felt a little more like myself again. But late on the third night, as I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and the TV whispering old jazz, I heard a soft knock at the door. Not pounding, not demanding, just hesitant. For a moment, my heartbeat stuttered. Men my age don't admit it, but night has a way of making every sound a little sharper. I set down my mug and reached for the porch light switch. When I opened the door, Jordan stood there alone. No lawyer, no wife, no swagger. Just my son, shoulders hunched, eyes red, hands buried in his hoodie pockets like he was holding on to himself to keep from falling apart. "Dad," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, as if the house itself might reject him. He looked at the photos on the walls, the ones he used to complain were crooked, the ones Denise insisted on printing, even when Jordan rolled his eyes. He stared at one in particular, the two of us fishing at Tybee Island when he was 11. His smile in that photo was so bright it felt like a different lifetime. "That was a good day," he whispered. I nodded. It was. He sank onto the couch like a man twice his age. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, with a shaky breath, he finally did. "Dad, I don't know what's happening to me." Those words stopped the room. He rubbed his hands together, hard, nervous, ashamed. "I feel like I'm drowning all the time. Bills, rent, pressure. Tasha keeps saying I'm not providing enough. Her family always made her believe money was the only way to measure love." He swallowed. And I started believing that too. He looked at the bruise on my cheek, still faintly visible after days, and his face twisted. "I swear to God, Dad, I don't know how that happened. I don't even remember deciding to do it. It was like something snapped inside me." His voice cracked on the last word. I sat across from him, letting him speak, letting it come out unfiltered. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've never hit anyone in my life. Not a kid at school, not a stranger. But that night," he shook his head, "it's like every failure I've made just exploded. And you were right there. And I took it out on you, the one person who always helped me." He looked up at me, eyes wet. I hate myself for it. The confession felt heavier than the slap ever did. But I didn't speak. "Not yet," he continued, voice shaking. "Tasha wants the house, Dad. She wants stability, security. She wants her future guaranteed. And I let her push me into things I never wanted to do." He let out a breath that sounded like a sob swallowed halfway. "She said convincing you wasn't abusive. It was responsible." He stared at his own hands, and I believed her. I finally spoke. "You let her talk you into hurting your father?" He winced. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear. I just—" He rubbed his eyes. "I thought if I didn't fix our lives, I'd lose her. Lose my family. Lose everything." "Family doesn't ask you to destroy someone else to feel secure," I said quietly. He nodded slowly. "I know that now." Silence settled again. But this time, it felt different. I leaned back in my chair. "Jordan," I said softly, "you crossed a line. Not just with your hands, but with your intentions." He nodded again, shame flooding his face. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so damn sorry." His voice trembled. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I just needed to tell you the truth." For the first time, he looked older, not like my little boy, not like a reckless man, but like someone staring at the ruins of his own choices. "I'm going to leave Tasha," he whispered. "I should have done it a long time ago. She's not the reason I hit you, that's on me. But she pushes me into being someone I'm not, someone I don't want to be." My breath hitched, not from surprise, but from the rawness in his voice. He stood slowly. "I'm not here to ask for the house, or money, or help." He paused. "I'm here to tell you I'm going to fix myself, and if you never want to see me again, I'll understand." He turned toward the door. "Jordan," I said. He paused, shoulders tense. "We're going to talk again," I said. "Not tonight, not tomorrow. But someday," I exhaled. "But you need to heal your life before you heal anything with me." He nodded, tears falling now. Then he whispered, "I love you, Dad." "I know," I said quietly. "And I love you too. That's why this hurts." He walked out slowly, a different kind of slow. Not angry, not defeated, just beginning. When the door clicked shut, The house felt warmer, safer, quieter. But I knew this wasn't the end. There was one more truth waiting to surface. One more storm rolling toward us. And this time, it wouldn't come from Jordan. It would come from the person who hated that he came here alone. The morning after Jordan's visit felt strangely calm, like the air itself was catching its breath. I opened the windows, let in fresh light, brewed coffee, and for the first time in days, the house didn't feel like a battleground. But peace has a short lifespan when poison still lurks outside the door. It happened around 10 a.m. A car pulled up smooth, expensive, the kind of SUV people buy when they need strangers to know they're doing well. Not Jordan's car. Not a neighbor. The door slammed. High heels clicked sharply across the driveway, a sound like a blade tapped against stone. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Tasha. I stood still in the kitchen, the coffee cup warm in my hands, as she marched up the porch steps and pounded on the door. "Earl, open up! Now!" Her voice carried the intensity of someone who'd lost control and was terrified to admit it. I took my time walking to the door, letting her feel every second of waiting. When I opened it, she didn't even bother with a greeting. "What did you say to him?" she demanded, shoving past me into the living room like she owned the house. I closed the door slowly. "Hello to you too." She spun around. Her eyes were wild, mascara smudged, hair pulled up in a messy bun that wasn't stylish, just desperate. "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "You're the reason he didn't come home last night." My chest tightened. Jordan hadn't told me where he was going, and I hadn't asked. But the fact he didn't go home spoke volumes. "Maybe he needed space," I said. "Space?" she hissed. "From his wife? From his pregnant wife?" Her hand flew to her stomach for emphasis, but her expression lacked the softness of someone protecting a child. It was a gesture meant to intimidate, not comfort. "You didn't mention you were pregnant," I said quietly. She smirked. "You didn't ask." A cold clarity settled in my bones. This woman wasn't losing her husband. She was losing her meal ticket. "So?" she pressed. "What did you say to him?" "I told him the truth," I said. "That he hurt me. That he crossed a line." Her eyes flashed with annoyance, not sympathy, not guilt. "He's stressed," she snapped. "And you're provoking him." I blinked slowly. "So now it's my fault he hit me?" She threw up her hands. "He didn't mean to." "God, Earl, you're so dramatic. It was an accident." "Accidents don't leave fingerprints," I said. "Stop being stubborn," she barked. "You're ruining everything." I stared at her, really stared. And suddenly, I saw her clearly for the first time. A woman drowning in entitlement, clutching at wealth that wasn't hers, using Jordan as a tool she didn't know how to sharpen or put down. "What exactly am I ruining?" I asked quietly. She moved closer, lowering her voice to a sharp whisper. "Our future," she spat. "This house. Our stability. Jordan thinks we're falling apart because of you." I kept my voice calm. "This house isn't yours." She didn't flinch. "It will be." "No," I said. "It won't." She stepped back, confusion flickering across her face. Then realization. Then fear disguised as rage. "What did you do?" she whispered. "What did you sign?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her breath quickened. She looked around the house like it was slipping through her fingers, like the walls were dissolving. "You put it in a trust," she said. "A living trust. Didn't you?" I remained silent. That silence confirmed everything she feared. She lunged toward me, finger pointing inches from my face. "You senile old man," she began. I grabbed her wrist midair, not hard, but firm enough to make her freeze. Her eyes widened. "Don't," I said quietly. "You don't touch me. Not in my house." She yanked her hand back, face twisting. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think a couple of papers will stop us? Jordan will come to his senses. He'll realize you manipulated him. He always comes back to me." I tilted my head. "Is that why you're here?" I asked. "Because you're afraid he won't this time." Her breath hitched. Barely, but enough. That was the crack, the place where her fear seeped through. "What did he tell you last night?" she demanded. "That he's leaving me?" I didn't answer, but she read the truth in my silence. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. No, he's not leaving. He wouldn't do that to me. To himself, I corrected softly. Tears filled her eyes, not grief, not heartbreak, but panic. The panic of someone whose control was slipping. You can't take him from me, she whispered. You can't. I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm just stopping you from taking everything. She staggered back like I'd struck her. Then she hissed, You'll regret this. I opened the front door. No, I said. I regret that it took this long. She stormed past me, slamming the door so hard that 2 picture frames rattled on the wall. I stood there in the quiet aftermath, listening to her engine rev, tires screeching as she tore down the driveway. The house trembled faintly, but I didn't. For the first time in years, I didn't tremble at all, because now it was clear. Jordan wasn't the enemy, but he wasn't the one pulling the strings either. The real storm was the woman who'd just walked out that door. And she wasn't done. Not even close. Tasha didn't come back the next day, or the day after that. But storms rarely vanish, they gather. They coil in silence, waiting for the right moment to strike. And on the 5th morning, the moment arrived. I was in the backyard watering Denise's rose bushes when I heard the sharp slam of a car door out front. Not Jordan's car, not Tasha's. 2 vehicles. Heavy engines. Government plates. My stomach tightened not with fear, but with the strange calm that comes when a man has already lived through the worst part. I set down the watering can and walked around the house. 2 police cruisers were parked in my driveway. Officer Donnelly was there, and beside her stood Jordan. His hands were shaking, his shirt rumpled, his eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him, in handcuffs, was Tasha. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her face twisted into something equal parts fury and panic. When she saw me, she lunged forward, and the officers had to steady her. "Earl!" she screamed. "You did this. You ruined everything." I crossed my arms. "I protected myself," I said. "Something you never expected me to do." She spat at the ground in front of me. "You manipulated him. You turned him against me. You old coward." Officer Donnelly stepped forward. "Enough," she said firmly. "Mrs. Carter, you need to calm down." But Tasha wouldn't calm down. Her voice rose higher, more frantic. I'm pregnant, and you're arresting me because some old man wants to play victim?" Jordan's face twisted in pain. "Stop it," he whispered. "Tasha, please, stop." She turned on him with an expression so venomous it made my throat tighten. "Oh, now you're defending him?" she snarled. "You don't care about our baby. You never cared. You're just as pathetic as he is." The officers exchanged glances. "Ma'am," Donnelly said carefully, "you are being charged with filing a fraudulent guardianship petition and forging property authorization documents." My eyebrows lifted. "Fraudulent petition?" I looked at Jordan. He looked ashamed. "Dad, I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear I didn't know she did that." Donnelly continued, her voice steady. "And based on new evidence submitted last night, we're also investigating a forged signature on a co-ownership inquiry." I narrowed my eyes. "What evidence?" She nodded toward Jordan. "He came to the station," she said softly. "He brought emails, text messages, voice notes." Jordan's voice cracked. "Dad, she forged your name. She tried to file behind my back, too." Tasha shrieked. "He's lying. He's lying to save his precious daddy." But Donnelly ignored her. "There's more," she said, turning to me. "We received a domestic intimidation report from your neighbor, Mrs. Halpern. She heard threats coming from Tasha's vehicle 2 nights ago." A chill ran through me. "What threats?" I asked. Jordan closed his eyes. "She said if you didn't sign the house over," he whispered, "she'd make sure the next accident didn't leave you standing." My breath stopped. Tasha screamed again, thrashing against the officers. "She's lying! He's lying! You're all lying!" Donnelly stepped between us, her voice firm. "Mrs. Carter, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." But Tasha didn't use it. She kept shouting ugly, frantic, hateful, until the officers pulled her toward the cruiser. As they loaded her in, Jordan finally collapsed onto the front steps like a man whose knees had given out. I walked over and sat beside him, not close but not far. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, "Dad, I'm so sorry." His voice was raw, wrecked. Human. I should have seen what she was doing. I should have protected you, not her. I inhaled deeply. You're not the first man to lose himself trying to please the wrong person, I said softly. And you won't be the last. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't offer it, I replied gently, but I didn't shut the door on it either. He nodded, shoulders shaking. I'm getting help, he whispered, for the anger, for the stress, for all of it. I already signed up for counseling, and I'm moving out, away from her, away from all this. A slow, heavy breath left my chest. Good, I said. Start with yourself. The rest will follow. He nodded again, quieter this time. So, what now? I looked at the driveway where the police cars were pulling away. The morning light reflected off the windshield like a curtain closing. Now, I said, now we heal. In our own ways, at our own pace. Jordan stood, wiped his eyes again, and turned back toward me. Can I come by again? He asked softly. Not today, but someday? I looked at him, really looked, and saw not the bruises he caused, not the anger he carried, but the boy who once slipped his hand into mine, crossing the street. Someday, I said. Yes. He nodded, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. He walked to his car, started the engine, and pulled away slowly. No anger, no screeching tires, just a quiet departure of a man beginning again. When he was gone, I stood on the porch alone. The house felt different now, lighter, safer, mine again. I reached up and touched my cheek. The bruise was fading, healing, leaving only a shadow behind. And, for the first time in a long while, I whispered something to the empty air, to Denise, to myself, to whatever listens to men at the end of long battles. We made it. Then I stepped inside, closed the door gently, and let the silence settle like peace returning home.